Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the OSR. Why are we going to do that? So let's talk about it. So one, I have an engaged, valued commenter who asked me specifically to comment on a video about, Baron de Ropp's The OSR is the carrot cake of Dungeons and Dragons. The link to that video is down below, but I'll explain what he says, and I'm going to give my comments. So before we go a step further, I have to talk about the OSR. So I've been doing tabletop role-playing game commentary on YouTube for 9 years, and never in my life have I slammed into a wall harder than when I openly talked about the OSR. When I have talked about the OSR, I have encountered, this is just my experience, others may have different experiences. When I talked about the OSR, I encountered OSR fringe community members. I don't think this is the vast. I think this is 1 to 3% of the OSR community. But those OSR fringe community members, I experienced behavior from them that I had never experienced from any tabletop role-playing game community before. Frankly, it was frightening. I had to delete multiple videos. It's definitely a thing, right? So I am incredible. So I'm going to talk about this OSR video, but I want to be very careful to explain to you. You're only going to hear a fraction of my actual opinion because I do not personally feel comfortable talking about the OSR openly and sharing all my views on it. Because I think the OSR has some fringe community members that simply don't allow it. The consequences are too high, right? So why am I talking about it? One, I had a valued, engaged commenter ask me to talk about it, right? Two, it's been a while, and I don't like to live by fear. And for a while, I definitely was living by fear when it came to the OSR. I literally wouldn't even say the letters OSR on this channel, right? Three, I think, if you have a problem and you want to fix it, you come back with a different tack. So one of my different tacks here is I'm only going to share a subset of my opinions, the most safe and palatable, right? And with that, and then also I have some new methods for dealing with issues that I encounter on the channel, which have been effective, right? So that's why I'm choosing to carefully discuss the OSR again. All right, so here we go. All right, so let's talk about Baron de Ropp's the OSR is the carrot cake of Dungeons and Dragons. It's a great video. So he makes multiple points in the video, but I'll give you the summary right here. I do encourage you to watch that video too. You can do it before or after finishing this video. So basically, Baron de Ropp, he has a great channel, by the way. Actually, I enjoy his content, but I will tell you, I wish he puts so much. His content is so layered and dense. I think he makes major points and then keeps moving on to other major points, and I think he's putting too much into each video because, frankly, it's hard to follow everything he's saying. Not because it's not all relevant, but because it's so complicated, right? And this is another issue: is a lot of people don't understand that discussing complicated subjects should be done a little more at a slower pace, in my opinion, right? I have 2 degrees. I'm not stupid, but I think when you get into the deep end of the pool, and his OSR is the carrot cake of DND, is a very deep end of the pool, right? I just think there's a lot there, right? He's got a great channel. I'm subscribed to him, and I've been enjoying his videos, right? It's so different than mine, right? He literally puts on a suit and sits in front of a library. Like, I love how different D&D commentators have these outrageously different approaches. You know what I mean? It's really fascinating to me. But he has a great channel. So his point was that that Dungeons and Dragons 1E and 2E, this is me summarizing. Let me know if anybody thinks that he meant something different than what I'm saying. The summary of his point was this, okay? So the summary of his point was D&D 1E and 2E was the actual carrot cake from the medieval times. And it was sweet because carrots were sweet, but you were actually eating the carrot mush, right? And that now OSR is carrot cake like modern carrot cake with sugar added. And OSR, and basically the original carrot cake back in the Middle Ages was there because carrots were cheap, but sugar was outrageously expensive, right? And so what he's saying is that when you take part in the OSR today, right, what you're actually serving to your team is something that looks like Dungeons and Dragons 1E and 2E, but is actually a super sweet mockery of Dungeons and Dragons 1E and 2E. And I think he was saying, like, hipsters play OSR and old school grognards play D&D 1E and 2E. Interesting. Very interesting point. What I want to talk about is what I absolutely loved about his video is basically this really fascinating aspect of it, where he is making a delineation. He is making a clear delineation on the difference between D&D 1E and 2E Dungeon Masters and OSR Dungeon Masters. That is very important. A lot of the people don't even understand that they are massively different groups. The D&D 1E and 2E Dungeon Masters are trying, they love like the unfinished, aspects of the Dungeons and Dragons game. They love THAC0. They love, that it's hard for their players to understand the math and adding negative numbers together, and did you do well in algebra? They just love that, right? And OSR is completely opposite, right? They're like, I like that vibe of old school Dungeons and Dragons, but I actually want the game to be accessible. And so basically, I thought that was really, really interesting. That was a very, very fascinating aspect of this. And they want it to be accessible. The other thing about the OSR that the D&D 1E and 2E players do not care about, and that I think the OSR, the vast majority of OSRs, are players and DMs. By the way, the best OSR player, DM, commentator in the world is Ben from Questing Beasts. He's beloved by everybody in the community, in every community, every tabletop role-playing game community. He's the best of us, right? But what OSR really cares about, right, that D&D 1E and 2E, I think, are very actively opposed to, is innovation. And so the perfect example of this to me is Index Card RPG. There are such hugely innovative ideas in Index Card RPG, which is an OSR game in my opinion. And it's so innovative, and it has so many unique, cool ideas, where D&D 1E and 2E are literally like, make sure you're frozen in 1984 and your game doesn't go past that, right? And so the idea that OSR wants an old school vibe, right, an old D&D 1E 2E vibe, but accessible to the new generation with huge tracks of innovation, things that had never been attempted in 2E, 1E, and 2E, is very, very important, right? And it's a really important distinction. And honestly, I'll say it flat out. Baron de Ropp is I love it because y'all's listen to me, man, and I am so deep into the pool. I talk about I talk about topics with Dungeons and Dragons nobody else in the world literally have. I probably have 100 videos where I'm talking about something with D&D in the context of D&D that has never been approached by another commentator ever. Easily 100 of them, right? But I love that there's guys who are way deeper down the rabbit hole than I am. And so I think Baron de Ropp is very, very deep down the rabbit hole in saying OSR is very different than a D&D 1E, 2E Dungeon Master. And I totally agree with him. It was a great point, great video. And I think he is right. I think he's right about the carrot cake thing. I think the OSR, he's right. OSR is the carrot cake of Dungeons and Dragons, okay? But get this, modern carrot cake is way better than that mushy old junk that people used to eat. So the OSR is better, right? The OSR, when done right, I think is better than playing D&D 1E and 2E, right? But they're all beaten by playing what Gary Gygax wanted us to play, which is Dungeons and Dragons now, the current version, always. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you to that valued and engaged commenter for this question. Hope this goes well. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.